What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video from myself, Ehsan Khan, and on my channel you're going to learn exactly how you can start your own recruitment business which will generate 0 to 6 figures in the next 12 months. And as well as that, we talk about all things money, investments and mindset. So if you're interested in any of those things, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and like this video to help the YouTube algorithm send this out to more like-minded individuals just like yourself who are looking for videos just like this. Now in today's video, I'm going to be telling you whether you should be going after vendor lists or PSLs as they're called here in the UK, whether you should be going for these type of partnerships and relationships with companies. Should you be going after them to get onto them as a recruitment business owner? So what I did was I thought I'd sit down and I'd make a bit of a list of the pros and cons for being on a vendor list or being on a PSL as a business owner to help you decide whether it is something that you think that you want to focus on or not. So let's start off with the positives. So just to define things so everybody understands what we're talking about here, vendor list or a PSL. So a vendor list is a list of suppliers that a company has that they work with. And usually these companies will have been credit checked and background checked, and there's a lot of checks that go into getting onto a vendor list for a company. But ultimately it's just that company's due diligence on the people that they're working with. And the same thing goes for a PSL. PSL is what is most known here in the UK, which is a preferred suppliers list, but generally it's the same thing. And when we're talking about recruitment, they will both have a vendor list or a PSL specifically for the recruitment companies that they choose to work with. So let's begin with some of the pros of getting onto a vendor list or onto a PSL of a company as a recruitment business owner. So number one, it's guaranteed business. Now, when you're on a PSL or a vendor list from a company, that means that they are going to come to you when they have a requirement. You don't need to chase them up. You'll have signed a contract and an agreement with them which states their rules of engagement when it comes to all positions, and the people that are on the vendor list or on the PSL will get first dibs on all the vacancies and positions that they have going, which means that at the start of the process, at the start of each financial year, the company will let you know what their plans are for the rest of the year so that you've got a good understanding as to what business is going to be coming in over the next 12 months. And you know that these companies are going to come to you, and so it's up to you just to fulfill on the resourcing side to find the candidates for them. You don't need to go and hunt for those jobs. The second pro for this is the fact that you're going to be building really good relationships with the people inside the organization, which means that you're going to have a good understanding of the culture and the type of people that they recruit for. So when you're just focusing on this one company, you're going to understand exactly who's a good fit and who's not for the company, and you have a good understanding as to how the managers recruit, what the process is, and generally there's not many surprises, and you can make your work a lot more efficient in this way. And the third reason why this would be great for a business to be on a vendor list or on a PSL for a company as a recruitment business owner is the fact that you can grow with these companies. So when these companies grow and expand, if you're on the PSL, that means that they need you to find those people in order for them to grow and in order for them to achieve their business goals. They need people to do that, and they've got you on their vendor list, they've got you on their PSL. They're going to come to you in order to find those people so that they can deliver for their end clients and maintain their reputation in the market. But on the converse, let me tell you about some of the negatives. And again, just as a caveat, some people build their entire businesses around one or two clients, and that's absolutely fantastic. And you know what, why would you necessarily want to have so many different clients? It's all about your preference and what you're looking for, and this is why I'm outlining the pros and the cons so that you have got a good understanding whether it is something that you even want to go after or not. So those are the pros, and now let me tell you some of the negatives. So for me, the biggest negative and the number one negative about being on a vendor list, on a PSL, is the fact that you're not going to be doing as much business development as you would if you weren't on them. So what this can do is this can make you very comfortable with the client that you have, and you can just focus on finding and resourcing, and it does mean that you lose some of your skills and abilities to go and hunt for new clients and find new clients. So if you are working as a solopreneur, for example, and you've got this big client and you feel that you can fill these roles, that's fine. If you're going to have 2 or 3 roles a month, that's not a big workload at all. But what that can do is that can make you, like I said, lose your skills in business development because you get too comfortable being a resourcer, and ultimately your priority is going to be with delivering for that client in order to not lose the business that you already have. So going and hunting for new business never seems as appealing as not losing the client that you already have. So that's why it can be dangerous to get on a vendor list or a PSL too early or too soon into your recruitment business journey. Number two, so just as I mentioned on the pros where you could grow as the company grows, if the bulk of your business is coming in through these companies that where you're on the vendor list or you're on the PSL for, then the moment that that company faces any type of challenges, any type of dangers, the first thing that they're going to do is cut recruitment costs and most likely start to lay people off. And what that means is that there's not going to be any business for you there. Now, a lot of people might have looked at this same thing that I've said a year ago, and they could have said to me, well, that wouldn't really happen. You know, things don't usually come as surprises like that. But I'm sure with the pandemic and the global lockdown that a lot of people have realized that the businesses that they built were built on sand and a shaky foundation because they built it focusing on particular companies, and now those companies have gone bust and thousands of recruitment companies have gone out of business because they were just focusing on a few companies. They lost that ability to bring on new clients and the cash just ran out. And the third con about being on a vendor list or a PSL is the fact that you don't have any control over the process. The process will be dictated to you. They will tell you these are the rates for the companies on our PSL. This is the interview process for the companies that we work with on our PSL. And they'll also tell you no line manager contact unless it's through the HR and unless it's very important, which means that they just want you to ask questions to the HR. The HR will go and speak to the line manager on a once a week basis, and that is not very efficient in my opinion. And for me, that's a big red flag. And for me, controlling the process is 80% of the deal itself. So if you have no control over the process, then for me, you don't have control over your income and it's not predictable. So even though you can say that it's guaranteed business, really in reality, you don't have any control over what's going on. So just to wrap this video up, I thought I'd conclude with my thoughts on both sides of the argument. And ultimately, I think that being on a vendor list or being on a PSL can be great. However, if you do get onto a vendor list or if you do get onto a PSL for a large organization, my sentiment would be that you start growing a team of resources quite quickly so that A, you can fulfill on your clients' needs and requirements properly. So you've got staff that you've trained specifically to find candidates for this company, whilst at the same time, you yourself can focus on the business development. Now, this is the most important part of any business, which is business development. If you're not developing your business, then what is happening? You're regressing in your business. So don't be afraid of this term of business development and lead generation and all this type of thing. All it means is that you're focusing on building relationships with companies and specifically within companies in your niche. So I've got onto PSLs before in the past, which have been absolute cash cows for me. But that's really what they are in my opinion. They are cash cows. They are for a large part a great place to just make some extra bucks and extra deals, but do not build your entire business around these companies and around these PSLs, and don't use this as your strategy for building your business in the first place itself. And what I mean by that is when I first got onto a PSL, I thought that I had hit the jackpot and I was working really hard and trying to implement the process and speak to the line manager, and all that it meant is that again I had no control over the process. I wasn't allowed to speak with the line manager directly, as I mentioned earlier. All that these clients became was a CV dumping ground. They would give you a job description, they wouldn't give you much feedback on the CVs that you've sent in the first place. They just tell you yes every now and then to a candidate and usually no to all the other candidates. They give very little feedback, and when they do, it's usually in written form, written by a third-party HR person who spoke to the line manager to get that feedback. So all of these things along the way where you're losing control, where you don't have direct contact with the line manager, for me it's just not the way that I like to work. And so when I get onto these PSLs, I just use them as, well, hey, I know that this person kind of fits in well with what they're looking for and they're local or they want to relocate locally to where this company is, so I'm just going to send them along. And usually what I found was I would do an extra deal every month or every 2 months from being on these PSLs and not necessarily focusing all my attention into them, and I built my business and I got my main deals from actually going out, winning new clients, finding vacancies, filling those vacancies, and then building those relationships to get repeat business after that. Now, don't get me wrong, I have been on some amazing PSLs where I had direct line manager contact, and when you do have that, then it can be amazing. However, something that you need to know is that when the relationship is that good, there's usually something bad that's going to follow. And what happened twice on two different PSLs, which were huge accounts for me, were that in one situation, I worked with a company for a period of 7 months. Every month I did 2 deals a month with this company alone. I was working directly with the line manager. He had seen the CVs that I had sent to him almost a year ago, and then he fought to get me onto their PSL. He wasn't allowed to recruit through me without me being on the PSL. He insulted the HR manager on multiple occasions for being incompetent in order to force his hand to get me onto the PSL, simply because the other recruitment companies that were on the PSL were on there because they had agreed to a much lower price, and ultimately the same reasons that I told you earlier and before about recruitment companies that are on PSLs, and therefore he wanted to make sure that he got his people from a specialist like me. And even though I came in 5% higher than what any other company previously had ever worked with them on, simply because the recruitment companies that were on their PSL were not delivering for them, and as a specialist in my niche, I knew that I could find these people easily for him. He wanted to work with me directly. I had the rates that I wanted. It was amazing. So why am I saying that this is something that could be bad? Well, the reason is that my relationship was solely with this one person in that organization. I did know his boss, but he was still quite removed from everything, and I was working directly with this engineering director. And after 7 months of working with him and making hay while the sun was shining, he up and left and went to a different company, in fact a competitor which was more local to where he lived. And lo and behold, when it came back to recruitment, the same HR manager which had gone through the whole process being taunted and insulted by this manager for me to get onto their PSL, turned around and said, your rates are too high. We did that as a one-off because he was too stubborn, and we're kicking you off the PSL. Even though you delivered upon the roles, we're kicking you off. And ultimately, if I hadn't focused on building relationships over those other 7 months with new companies, then I would have been in a tight spot, because as I'm building these other relationships, these companies are still coming back to me. I'm not on a PSL. We don't have any signed agreement necessarily with all these companies, but because I've given such a great service to them in finding people for their last vacancy, and I managed and maintained the relationship with them over these months, it's inevitable that they're going to come to me and they're going to let me know. In fact, most of the time when I'm speaking to them, they will tell me about future projects which they might be getting. So a lot of the time, these managers will be saying to me, hey Asan, look, just to let you know, give you a heads up, we've got a new project that we're tendering for. We're going to find out next week if we're going to get onto it, and if we do, we're going to need some more people. And at that point, that's when I kick in the process and I go full speed ahead to get them candidates that are going to be spot on for him. I've set up an established process with him to make sure that I'm the only person that he even speaks to about this role. Something similar also happened when I was working in the oil and gas industry. One of the companies that I was doing crazy figures with told me that they wanted to bring me onto the PSL. I had been operating outside of the PSL at 30%. But in fact, not only did I have a great relationship with the line manager who was a senior executive within this company who reported directly to the CEO, and I also had an incredible relationship, funnily enough, with the HR. Now, why was this that I had a good relationship with this HR and not many others? I don't know, to be honest, but this guy was great. And I remember like yesterday walking through one of the corridors in the office, and he said to me that we want you on the PSL, however 30% is too high. Can you bring this down for us, Esan? Can you give us any kind of discount? I said, what are the other agencies working at with you? And he said, they're working at 25%. And I said, what's the service that you've been getting from these companies? And he said, they haven't been that good, Esan. That's why we want you to bring you on board. So what I said to him was that I would come onto the PSL as a preferred supplier on the PSL, which meant that they would come to me exclusively for a period of 1 week before they went to anybody else on their PSL. But I would still give him the price of 25%. And if you saw in my last video about charging higher fees, when I gave him that discount from 5 5 to 25%. He was so elated because he was not expecting me to say yes, but because I valued the relationship and I wanted a long-term relationship with this company and I wanted to be their number one supplier, I wanted to give him a discount. But like I said to you, you always take something when you give something. So when I gave him 5% off, I gave it with the condition that they come to me exclusively first, and if they do like any of my candidates in that first week, then they keep the role exclusive with me until the interviews for those candidates are done, and if there's no more candidates from me, then they would go out to somebody else. Now, the reason I talk about this one is actually because as soon as I had signed this deal with the company, maybe 3 months later, the entire oil and gas industry collapsed. And what this meant was, of course, that hiring was not gonna happen for the foreseeable future. And so, yet again, if I had rested my laurels on that company, which at the start of that process would have been worth over £1.5 million in recruitment fees due to the high level salaries that I would have been working with. However, that £1.5 million per year account that I thought was going to happen never came into fruition. So whether I had agreed 50% or 10%, it wouldn't have made any difference because the company wasn't able to hire during the economic conditions. But again, because my focus is always on bringing in new clients and finding new leads every single day, I'm never worried about PSLs or a company's economic condition or financial condition, because I will always be able to find winning companies within my niche, because I will always be able to find the right type of companies to work with within my niche who I know are hiring. And by following the process that I implement and through following the process that I implement, I'm consistently able to bring these companies on board. So that's it, guys. I hope this video has helped some of you who might be thinking that you're missing out by not being on PSLs. Maybe you're spending hours and nights creating presentations and packs about your business in order to get on these PSLs. I would say to you guys, it's better to not be on them than to be on them. Build a business without them, and if they come, then use them as freebies. Don't focus your whole attention on them unless you've got control over the process and you've got line manager contact, the same way as if you'd be working with a company outside of the PSL. That's the only way that I see that it works. Otherwise, like I said, you're building your business on sand and a shaky foundation. Anyways, that's it, guys. Thanks so much. If this has helped you, give this video a like, give it a share to somebody who you know is going to benefit from watching this video. And if you'd like to learn more about how you could set up a successful recruitment business and you want to generate 6 figures in the next 12 months, then click the link below to watch my case study video where I explain to you exactly how you could do that working from home using your laptop and a mobile phone. Thanks so much, guys. If you haven't subscribed, do that now, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.